take a cruise to fly over the United States, go to there. They say maybe 2 days before or 2 days after, before the cruise. Purposes of this double trip could be very good. This is the Salt Lake City airport. Not only is the city, but we're the only one. Salt Lake City is the moment, but we're the only hotel that sell liquor. They don't drink because they cannot drink. So in the neighborhood of maybe 2 miles, we're the only one that can sell liquor. Just that alone, because a lot of advantage. There's another one. When you buy tours, you want to see management. I can use one general manager. There's another one. When you buy tours, you want to see management. I can use one general manager. Each hotel need a four and so-called mechanic engineer to fix everything. 4 I can use to 6 to work together. So yeah, you can read this. All these are rebranded. Delta, Marriott, the couple of Berkeley is University of Berkeley. This hotel is I bought 45 million in 2 years. I sold for 108 million. You know, 45 million, usually I put 1/3 of my money. It's 50 million. From 50 million, I make 110 subtraction. I make 60 million. So 50 million, I make 60 million for 3 years. I just do a renovation of a brand new hotel. It's a very large deal, 450. This is one of the first purchases. Next to Berkeley, they never have a problem. It's beautiful waterfront too. Double tree. Okay. Like I say, I like to follow law. If you check all this background of this profession I have, this is one of the toppest security attorneys, the EB5 Center, I don't tell you, economics there. I announced to them, you check this website, you can see that. They go to the best job they can to offer to you guys to protect me and protect me. Okay, I'm end up my presentation. I don't know if I'm over it sometime, but anyway, thank you very much. Have a good lunch. If you want to reach me, I have a booth there. And hopefully I can find a good agent to help me for this Vietnam market. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Great presentation. Well, before lunch, I want to welcome and do the panel 6, agents and dealers. So I'm going to ask Bart Sugonski from EB5 United, J.R. Bras from Arcadia Partners, Raymond Myers from Meyer Law Group, and Sula Road, you are our friend, you are Guero.
Lady wife.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome, friends, partners, guests. Thank you for staying. It's a very interesting panel. The most attractive part of EB5 RIA, talking a little bit about compliance today. Before I do start, maybe for everybody could please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Bart. My name is Brandon Meyer, founder and principal of Meyer Law Group, immigration law firm based in San Francisco, official offices in New York, San Diego, and here in Ho Chi Minh City. I've been coming to Vietnam for EB5 since 2011, so 13 years now.
No? Yeah, excellent. My name is Joab. I'm with a company called Sula Rose. We are a developer in the West Coast. We specialize in hospitality. Been doing this for the last 15 years. We love the EB5. My personal first time in Vietnam, so I'm happy to be here. And
Xin chào. My name is J.R. Matwasi. I'm the COO of Arcasia Advisors. We are headquartered in downtown Dubai. I've been coming to Vietnam since 2016. Xin cảm ơn. Thank you for your time. And I'm an advisor for all the investors. I'm Beverly Hills Realtor for 10 years. I came from the real estate development side the past 7 years. So we're here for your service and looking forward to speaking with the team here. Thank you.
Very good. My name is Bart Suchomski. I'm with EB5 United. I focus almost my entire career is EB5. I've been based in Vietnam for the last 6 years, in Asia the last 10 years. My background is in finance, structuring EB5 deals, real estate deals, underwriting, diligence, and a little bit of compliance as well. All right, that's it about introductions. So today's panel, the topic is agent and promoters under RRA, requirements for migration agents in the new EB5 regulations, and what it means for regional centers. It's a very interesting topic. And I think maybe before we jump into a lot of the details, let's step back a little bit and take a look at basically what happened and RRA a little bit in general. There are many EB5 practitioners in the room. As you know, EB5 has been around since the early 90s. So almost for 30 years, the program is ongoing without much changes or without any major updates to the legislation itself. So the 2022 Reform and Integrity Act, that's what RRA stands for, has been passed through Congress. Some of these rules have been regulations implemented by USCIS, but basically changing EB5 in a very significant way. We talk a lot about what EB5 is, new EB5, how it affects investors, but RRA is such a big piece of legislation that a lot of it addresses and affects all practitioners in the industry, including developers, regional centers, agencies, and essentially anybody that's involved. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But in general, can you tell us, what do you guys think about the RRA? What do you think is the essence of it? What do you think is the most important part? What do you like about the RRA? And how do you think that really changes the game?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so one of the things about the EB5 industry in general is every time there's something new coming, be it the Reform and Integrity Act, changes to sustainment period for investment, whatever it is, there's always, the first impulse is toward panic and pessimism. Thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to make things so difficult, what are we going to do? And then as an industry, as the practice evolves, we tend to find out that actually everything is okay, everything is fine. And I think one of the things that we found out that was scary at first with the Reform and Integrity Act was, among other things, the requirements that agents and finders have to register with U.S. immigration, and that the regional centers and the projects now have significant oversight and compliance responsibilities under the RIA. Initially, when this came out, everyone was really, really scared, thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to, kill the industry. No agent is going to register. We're not going to have any EB5 funds. Everything is just going to slowly die. And over the last 2 years, we found that to not be the case. Everyone has figured out, for the most part, what everyone needs to do. The system is put in place, and everything is fine.
Absolutely. I think that a lot of the changes were made came mainly from issues that they were running into travel, and just introducced much more transparency, much more regulation in order to really standardize the industry. I think that one of the two latest topics that came out of the study of that huge act that was passed, which took a while for many lawyers to actually read. Luckily, I'm not a lawyer, I didn't have to read the whole thing, but we read the summaries. So two topics that came on the latest summary update that came out is A, the duration of time that our investors need to keep their money at risk within the fund, which came to be 2 years. And as a developer, I can tell you that it's really great for the industry as a marketing gimmick or a promotion thing to create, but it's completely unrealistic from the US developer perspective to actually be able to promise the money back within a 2-year period. And the reason I say that is because I like addressing that elephant in the room every time up front, is that by the time that it takes you to get permits approved, start construction, get the place on the ground, whether the liquidation event creates from selling the unit or whether it comes from a refinance of the loan, you need to have some stabilization. And a 24-month period is just completely unrealistic. And I think that that's created a lot of change, which comes with the added transparency to the project, which allows for people to actually communicate about, okay, good, let's do a 3+1, 3+1+1, but kind of really with open communication discuss what are the realities of those, because outside of this convention arena, we find a lot of very funny projects out there that guarantee people money within 24 months. And I just think that that's completely reckless. That's exactly the problem of why our industry ran into the need of having this RIA changes in order to make sure that we out all of those people. The second point that came out from this summary is the set-aside visa allocation, which is always a very interesting topic to have, especially with people that are from the destination country or the region country of bringing the investors in, which is the amount of visas that are set aside per location. So out of the whole visas that are allocated for EB5, one thing that people sometimes neglect is that whatever is not issued during a physical year, which is defined September to September, it actually rolled over to the next year. So normally you have 10,000 visas allocated for EB5, but this year we actually have 13,997 visas that are going to be issued during this, because last year they didn't issue them. So out of those allocations, there is 20% allocated for handling of backlog in rural area, 10% that are being allocated towards high unemployment areas, and 2% for industry. So whenever we hear all the put people into rural, they get fast track, they get the stuff faster, it's a little bit under assessing the risk management of the factors of some of those projects. And again, not all, some rural projects are super safe. But it's underestimating it with the promise of having faster processing time or faster allocation out of that fund, but it's not always actually really being assessed. And I'd love to hear my colleagues.
Yes, I want to say ethical. That's where this program is. Many years ago, we were talking about this earlier, right, Bart? Clients are still in the pipeline in the 500,000 era. Now clients, investors are most protected. This is the best time for EB5. Why? Because the clients are safest. In regard to the financial reports, mandatory from the projects annually, this is important. I like what my colleague just mentioned right now regarding the rural projects. This is huge. You know, the return on investment for EB5 is nominal, meaning that this is a green card return on investment. But for expedited processing, I'm an agency, I'm an advisor. So I look after the investors. I bring up the best projects, and I make sure that rural, this is risk. Why? Because think about it in regard to the outskirts of the metropolis. District 1, right? District 1 is the most expensive real estate in Ho Chi Minh City, right? Before the projects we used to do, I was on the project side. I was doing hotels in Hollywood Boulevard. That's where the program used to be. There's still great projects, which are target employment areas, standard processing, but rural projects have changed the whole industry. clients, their dreams are more attainable. The return on investment is an expedited green card. So moving forward, I think it's really important for clients to measure projects side to side. That's where agencies are very important for this industry. There's a word in the legal side of the industry, they call it fiduciary. You always need to have the best attorneys, you have to have the best advisors with the best projects. It takes a team. I'm a Beverly Hills realtor, right? My clients don't walk over and buy the house directly from the buyer, the seller, sorry. You always have to have a fiduciary between you, the project. That's what the attorneys are here for. That's what the advisors are here for. So just to sum it up, number one, ethical. I love the program today. This is the best time for investors now to engage their investments. Yeah.
And I would say slight counterpoint to that would be, one of the things that's always made me nervous as an EB5 practitioner when talking to potential investors is if they're chasing three things. Number one, if they're chasing the highest return on their investment. Number two, if they're chasing the promise of quicker processing times. And I forget the third one, but somewhere along those lines as well. And so it is true that the Reform Integrity Act has created these opportunities for faster processing in rural cases, but it still doesn't cause us to shirk our fiduciary responsibility to make sure that that you and if you're on the agency side, that you're advising people to select projects not based on the sizzle, the sound the steak makes as it's cooking, but still the actual steak that you're going to be eating is still important. So if you see advertisements and they don't talk anything about the project, it's just faster processing times, 4.5% return, whatever it is. They're selling you the sizzle and not the steak. And so that's something slight counterweight. It's also, but because of the Reform and Integrity Act, and your group is definitely a prime example of this, this has created opportunities for developers to bring high quality rural projects to the EB5 market that would not have been possible 5 or 10 years ago. To your point, when all the EB5 action was on Hollywood Boulevard or West 57th and 6th in Midtown Manhattan. And so the RIA has really changed the game on the project development side as well.
Right, all excellent points. So just to sum up, a lot has been said. So you mentioned capital flowing into areas, economical areas where it's actually needed. Not Hollywood, not Manhattan, and even in urban areas where it's, or rural projects where the capital is needed. New benefits to investors with shorter investment terms, short investment time, priority processing, right? Concurrent filing, something maybe we didn't mention. And as Brent initially mentioned, a lot of transparency that came into the program, right? So much more filings in terms of reporting, regional center reporting, regional center principals involved in the management of the regional center. They need to provide the biometrics, they need to have clean, non-criminal record, and all those things. So there's also annual reporting, certifications. So there is much more transparency reporting than it ever was. Additionally, USCIS, I believe, also is scheduled to do site visits, inspections. Right? So there's a lot of going on, and a lot has changed, and all for the benefit of investors and everybody really involved for the integrity of the program, right? And I think that's kind of the next where discussion is going, is direct and third-party promoters. That's really the essence of our panel today, and that's what I wanted to focus on. Direct and third-party promoters, there's a specific paragraph in the RRA bill about promoters and how these promoters have to comply and how have to comply with the new rules and what's required of them. Brian, do you want to take that one? What do you think? What is the essence? What are the main elements and what the agents need to watch out for to comply with the new rules?
Right. So the perception in pre-RIA EB5 was that it was this unregulated wildlands of people out there overseas and even in the US, engaging in unscrupulous marketing and making lots of money and not disclosing conflicts of interest and risk, and basically putting people in projects that shouldn't have been happening. And so the RIA, in an attempt to address this, created several compliance standards, one of which was requiring overseas finders to register with USCIS for each project that they market. So every time an agency signs up to do a new project, not regional center, but new project, so for example, every time that Bart's group has a new project offering, you're supposed to, you submitted a K form for the previous project, you got to do it again and again and again and again. And at first everyone was really upset about that, but then just do it. You say you've done it, because how is USCIS? They're not happy with this. They're being inundated with paper from 20, 30 filings from agencies for each project that they offer. So what are they going to do with it? So two things they're going to do with it. One, on the offering documents that projects provide the investors, is supposed to say, these parties are getting paid for this transaction. ABC agency in Vietnam, BFD agency in the US. Investors supposed to sign off on that. That goes to USCIS. So that creates the first opportunity for USCIS to actually track who's doing this. They get Mr. Trans 526 filing, they go to page 72 on the private placement memorandum. The disclosure is, BFD agency got paid. Let's go see if they get a K form. If they didn't, there's a problem for BFD agency. Number two, and this is something that people aren't talking about, but I think you really need to be careful of if an agency here in Vietnam or anywhere overseas, direct marketing in the United States. In order to sell EB5 and engage in direct marketing in the US, you must, like the two of us, have FINRA-issued securities licenses. Otherwise, if you are doing direct sales in the US, that is a securities violation in the US. So how does that impact you? Let's just say you decide to take a group of potential investors to go visit a project in the US. Of course, what do? You take pictures of yourself with all your potential investors, post it all over Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever social media sites. Well, then you just created an opportunity for USCIS to say, ABC agency was in California looking at projects. I don't know, this looks like, let me call my contact at the US Securities and Exchange Commission and see if any of these people have licenses. Oh, they don't. That's a big problem. So this, in some ways, we talked about how the developers and the regional centers have had discipline imposed on them by the Reform and Integrity Act. Actually, the ones who have had the most discipline imposed on them are overseas finders. You have to be very, very, very careful what you do. And before you do anything, you need to talk to someone here before you do it. Because the last thing you want is to get a letter, subpoena from the US Securities and Exchange Commission and say, hey, where's your license? And oh, by the way, if you don't have one, all of your investors have what's known as rescission rights, which is basically no question asked refund that they have to be given. So that's probably something that, that's why we're talking about it today, because this is underappreciated change of the Reform and Integrity Act.
I'm going to add to that. In regard to the agency side, this is great for investors to know this. We have to submit our agreement, okay? We get paid. We get paid management fees. We manage our clients' assets, okay? I'm located in downtown Dubai, right, for instance. I have to submit to USCIS a Form K, we just mentioned, right? 956K. This shows my agreement with the project moving forward. Everything is disclosed. So investors, they know. And there's also something called a fee disclosure agreement. So clients know your advisors are with it. And what's interesting is before there was a lot of pushback, right? When this came out, a lot of agents were afraid. Why? Because some agents don't understand the value of their services. I was most excited. I said, this is great. Why hide? There's no hiding. Everything should be transparent to the investors. The investors should know how much we're getting paid, and we're worth it, by the way. Because we don't just basically say, good luck, take care. We are with you the entire way. So I go back to the word ethical. This is a brand new program. It's most ethical for the projects, for the attorneys, for the agents, but especially for the investors.
Yeah, so here's a new issue that's coming up as well. So EB5 offerings are regulated securities offerings. However,
But I'm going to stop you. There's been a lot of said, a lot of, as always, a lot of rich information coming from them, a lot of facts, very helpful. I want to unpackage some of that so everybody can kind of follow step by step. What does it mean to comply with RA and the new rules? The first thing you said is filing form 956K. That's what's need to be submitted. That form includes the owner's principles of the agency or the forward finder, the agreement with the project, that includes obviously all the fees. What else? Business license. Business license needs to be included. What happens with an agency 6K and 6 months later they sign up with a new project? Do they have to file a new 956K form? Yes. Right? All right, then what happens? You said this to USCIS. How does the USCIS respond? Well, do they respond? Do they and do they acknowledge that they received your filing?
They'll acknowledge that they received it. They wouldn't give you approval or disapproval, just
How does that acknowledgement look like?
Some of our agents receive letters, some of our agents didn't.
Right, so far agents receive receipt, right?
Yeah, they get an acknowledgement.
From my practice, it's very helpful to have great friends in the US like Brian and Manny that will help you with compliance and submitting those, sending those from overseas might be troublesome. It's much easier to send it in from within. The RA, the bill RA itself talks about agents that are eligible, right? Who can be a promoter or who cannot be a promoter? That's a better question. So there is an element of you have to not be ineligible, which means essentially it's related to having a criminal record, right? That's the main requirement is not having a criminal record. That's the only requirement right now to be an agent. But I think it's important to notice that RRA is now recognizes the Secretary of Homeland Security as a governing body essentially that has the right to impose any future rules in addition to RA, any future rules to the agencies, to the promoters. So these things can be updated, can change in the future, right? So right now when the agents register, they receive a receipt that they filed. Is their information public, first of all? Can they find it on the USCIS website? Will this change?
that was the initial plan, was for USCIS to publish all this data on their website for who submitted I-956Ks. That has not happened yet, and I haven't heard any discussion as to when that might actually happen.
Right, but it is possible that could change. There's no indication, but there's possible these rules might change in the future.
Yeah, there's an intention and the promises that it will be out there. And I think that a lot of things that are being unpacked from the change since 2022 are still not fully existing, but it is a process to get us there, with the main point of creating more transparency. Not to have regional centers or developers or agents that making bogus promises and guarantees but never deliver, and create some kind of a line of chain of custody of good. How did this investor arrive to this project and put his money there, and making sure that he actually get what he promised.
So then the next step that affects promoters and your clients is elephant in the room, fee disclosures. Right? That's a big change. in the past, the fees were disclosed, but they were essentially buried in the legal language somewhere in the
I have to say that for me was a shocker. Honest, any transaction we ever do, within the US, always disclosed. You can't go and get a fee or get paid to do something without you knowing what's going on, especially when you make an arrangement of bringing somebody else's money. So when I've seen that on that and was talking to some of my agent colleagues, I was actually shocked that it's a new thing. I had no idea that they're not disclosing to the investors how much money they're getting from bringing the investor into the deal. So from my perspective and from the people I work with directly, we see no problem with that.
So big change is that now the fee disclosure essentially needs to be signed by the investor, and that's very clear in the bill in RRA. The language is very clear. Actually, I have it right in front of me. It's not that big, and it's very clear. And that needs to be included in investor's petition. Fee disclosure about what's the compensation to the promoter agency, to the regional center, to the NCE, and any other party involved, and the investor needs to sign on it. Now, Brendan, you file cases, you file I-526. What do you think can be the consequence of not having that fee, that disclosure included in the application?
I think the consequence, well, there probably won't be much of a consequence, fortunately, to the individual investor as the innocent party. I think that the problem, if there is one, will be directed toward the regional center and the project for their failure to include the proper disclosure documents and seek the proper disclosure of payments.
So that's very interesting, actually. Say that. So you're saying the client, the applicant, will most likely not suffer for not having a fee disclosure in the application. Most likely, interesting, actually. Say that. So you're saying the client, the applicant, will most likely not suffer for not having a fee disclosure in the application. Most likely,
are very responsible.